everyone. Welcome back to Classic Vinyl Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Justin. I'm here with my other host.
And I am Tyler. No.
Something like that.
I am Tyler.
Yes, you are.
I am not one of the great Fab Four.
And of course, today we're going to do our episode on the Beatles' third studio album, A Hard Day's Night. This is another one of our Meet the Beatles episodes. Of course, we're doing that because the Beatles are my favorite band, and I'm trying to get it to be one of Tyler's favorite bands, but either way.
But we're not reviewing the movie, although we probably should have. We should have watched the movie for this. We just listened to the album.
So in my attempting to get you to enjoy the Beatles a little more, is it working or not working?
Oh, I'm getting baptized into the Church of John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Well, since we're going to be doing a bunch of Meet the Beatles episodes, we're not going to give the whole rundown on the band because I think anybody that knows the Beatles knows most of the particulars, but they were obviously formed in Liverpool, England in 1960. They're considered one of the most influential bands of all time, greatest selling artist of all time. They've released a total of 13 studio albums. Of course, that's if you're only counting their UK studio albums and not all their alternate American albums and things like that. But Lennon and McCartney, definitely one of the greatest songwriting duos in all time. In my opinion, the greatest songwriting duo of all time. George Harrison's not too bad of a songwriter himself, so...
You know, temporarily they went by the Crickets. No, they didn't. You know, this is why you do all the facts on the history, and I just shut up.
So because they were such big fans of Buddy Holly and the Crickets, they named themselves the Beatles. Because the Crickets, you know, they thought Buddy Holly and the Crickets were not only an animal, but it made sound, right?
Yeah.
And so they thought Beatles was perfect. But at very first, they were called the Silver Beatles, and it was spelled Beetles, but then they changed it to Beatles with an A because the word beat, you know, kind of a double meaning. But
Silver Beatles, that was my high school mascot.
yeah, and so all four members have had excellent solo careers as well. All of them are in the Hall of Fame as the Beatles and as solo artists.
And they belong to be. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, so do you want to get to the album review?
Let's do it.
And now it's time for the album review.
Okay, so today we're doing the Beatles' third UK studio album, A Hard Day's Night. It was released on July 10th of 1964. All the early albums were really dominated by John Lennon. And even on this album, you'll notice most of the songs are primarily written by John Lennon, even though they're credited to Lennon McCartney. And most of them are sang by Lennon. He's very dominant in these early albums, as McCartney seems to be in the later albums. And the kind of interesting thing about this is they had an American soundtrack to it that went along with the movie A Hard Day's Night, and it was released 2 weeks earlier, but kind of had a different lineup of songs. It's a little bit interesting. I've got that on vinyl too, and it's got a little bit of orchestration to it and things that's come from the movie. It's interesting, but
maybe in the future we'll do that one too.
We possibly will. But this is actually the first album from the Beatles where the tracks were written completely by Lennon and McCartney. They had no covers on this album.
Oh, wow.
So side one has the songs from the film soundtrack, and side two has the songs written for the film, but they were not included in the film for whatever reason.
They picked them up off of the cutting room floor and gave them to us on side two.
Yeah. The movie name and the album name, A Hard Day's Night, is really a Ringoism. It really come from something Ringo said, and that's where they picked it up. So there's no Ringo Starr song on this album that he's singing. George only sings one song, I'm Happy Just to Dance With You, and of course that's a Lennon-McCartney composition that was written primarily for George.
I see.
This is included in a lot of lists of the top 100 essential rock albums of all time. And you really need to put yourself in perspective with this because this is a very short album, very short songs, but very, very much of the time. So this is also considered by a lot of people one of the top 5 best British albums of all time. And it's really hard for me to rate Beatles because it really just depends on what mood I'm in and do I want to listen to early Beatles or mid Beatles or late Beatles or whatever. It's just a whole different thing, and I think Beatles fans know that. So
yeah, this is early Beatles.
Yeah, it's not the earliest stuff, but it's definitely early.
Yeah, it's still early.
So this album reached number 1 in the UK, number 1 in the US, Germany, Finland, Australia. It was at the top of the charts for over 21 weeks. So pretty big time album.
All the cats out there really digged it.
Yeah, it is rated by the RIAA 4 times platinum with over 5 million albums sold. So do you want to get to side 1?
Spin it.
Side 1.
Okay, so the album Hard Day's Night opens up with the title track, A Hard Day's Night. This one's written and sang by John Lennon, obviously credited to Lennon McCartney like all of them are. Has Paul singing in the middle 8 on this one. This song hit number one in the US, UK, all over the world. This was a number one song. The opening chord is kind of what this song is really famous for, and it's really sweet from that Rickenbacker 360 12-string guitar from Harrison. I mean, it's kind of the quintessential statement of this song.
Quintessential statement of the whole album. That's a really hard chord, but it's so famous.
Yeah, it is. And it's kind of cool because they fade out with the same chord on this song as well. And once again, getting to that kind of Ringoism, the title of the song was credited as one of Ringo's Ringoisms, but it was not a new phrase. It had been around a little bit, and it had actually appeared in Lennon's In His Own Right book that he had released. So this song, as all the songs on this album, are pretty explanatory, really. I mean, it's not like when you get into later Beatles lyrics where they're kind of hard to figure out what they mean or what they don't mean. Most of these are pure love songs.
Oh, yeah. We are following a young man who is desperately seeking love.
So anyways, this song is pretty self-explanatory. They've had a hard day's night, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And he's wanting to get home to his girl. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on A Hard Day's Night, the song?
I really love this hard open with that single chord, and then it just goes right into It's Been a Hard Day's Night. I mean, this album, this guy, he works hard for his money. He works hard for it, honey. So you better treat him right.
That's a different song.
Yeah, but it's still the theme of this whole album.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. He really wants to feel all right. He wants her to make him feel all right. And he works hard to give her money so that she can buy things, everything she wants. You can't necessarily buy love with it, but hey, I mean, every man pays for feeling all right. What do you get in return, and how much does it cost you? One thing that I really noticed about this song is Ringo is punishing the crap out of those drums. He's wailing away, and it sounds good. This is a heavy song for the album to open up with, and a heavy love song. The guitar's real thick and heavy in it. And I always thought, I was surprised to hear you say that John Lennon does the singing, because I always thought this was Paul McCartney, and it's not. It is John Lennon. You're absolutely right.
Well, you've got Paul McCartney in the middle eight on this song.
Yeah, he's in there.
A little higher notes.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Like with later Beatles music, it seems like Paul takes over the lead singing, right? But this earlier stuff, John is kind of the front man.
Well, I mean, through and through, the Beatles shared a lot of the singing. I mean, you get in the albums, Ringo always had one or two songs here and there.
Usually weird ones.
and Harrison always had a couple compositions, and by the time you get like Rubber Soul, McCartney and Lennon start sharing a lot of the duties. But I think when you get into the last few albums they did, they're definitely more McCartney inspired. I would say.
I really like this song. It's a great one, and once again, it starts off with this guy that's in love with this girl, and he goes and works his hard job and busts his butt to bring home a paycheck so that she can have whatever she wants. He's really devoted and dedicated to her. I respect that in the message. What I respect even more is the band. These guys play so well together. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think Hard Day's Night has jangly greatness from the Rickenbacker. This has got a really great vocal from Lennon on this, and I really like McCartney on the middle eight. I think it's very strong. He's got a good vocal. The bass line really pokes out in this one to me. So this song's got a guitar solo, which is a little bit different from the early work, because a lot of their early songs on the first couple albums, instead of a guitar solo in the middle, you had a harmonica solo. I mean, Lennon played the harmonica on a ton of their songs, especially the early ones.
Yeah, songs on this album have his harmonica.
Yeah, I think the drumming in it, like you stated, is great. And the outro guitar lick, basically going off the intro guitar lick is great too. A good way to open this album. I think this is the perfect song to open this album. So that brings us on to the second song, I Should Have Known Better. It's another Lennon-McCartney composition written by John Lennon mainly, sang by John Lennon. You've got Lennon playing his J160E Gibson and Harrison again on his Rickenbacker 360 12-string. This was the B-side of the Hard Day's Night single in the US only. And this song was written specifically for the movie, but Lennon, he's basically said that when asked, what does this mean? What does that mean? He says this song doesn't mean a damn thing. He wrote it because they asked him to write a song about the movie. But if you listen to the lyrics, I mean, it does have meaning to it, or you can at least find your meaning out of it. Lennon has stated that this is very Bob Dylan influenced because they were getting into Bob Dylan big time at that point in their careers. If you have seen the movie, this is the part that they play in the train compartment where they're all just sitting around playing cards and they play this song. So what are your thoughts about I Should Have Known Better?
I thought it was a really cool opening with the same tune as Hard Day's Night. And then it transitions rather smoothly across to I Should Have Known Better. But yeah, this is pretty straightforward lyrics. I think that when John Lennon says, oh, it doesn't mean a thing, it might not mean anything to him, but this is pretty dang straightforward writing, I think. This is a guy that, he's chasing being in love. This guy's really in love with the idea of being in love. He's chasing that with the naivety of youth, thinking that if he gave love, then he would see it reciprocated, measure for measure. But he was let down when she didn't reciprocate. And that's a good word, reciprocate. So I used it like 3 times in that last little bit. But in the end, he finds out, oh, wait a second. This is a one-sided love. This guy is giving all to her, and he should know better. She's not giving him nearly as much as he's putting into this relationship. And maybe, she thinks he's sweet, thinks he's nice, but just a friend. This guy's on the verge of being friend-zoned. What do you think about it?
I really like this song. It's got the harmonica intro, and the harmonica is played throughout. It's very noticeable. And another thing that's very noticeable in this for the second song in a row is the bass line. It's really thick and decent. And I've said it a million times. I still think Paul McCartney's a very underrated bass player, if Paul McCartney can be, but he is. The vocals on this are really good. That's probably one of the things I like about this song the best. It sounds almost like they're double tracked. It's really good Lennon vocals, and it's kind of echoey. The drumming's good in it, and then it's got the harmonica outro. I've always loved this song, and every song on this album is a short song. Definitely a really good start to the album.
For sure.
So let's get to song 3, If I Fell, another Lennon-McCartney composition. This one was written by Lennon mainly, but it was co-written with McCartney on this one. Lennon does consider this, he said many a times he considers this his first real attempt at writing a ballad. And this is the only ballad, or what the boys considered a ballad, they allowed into their live sets at the time. So this was played live quite a bit. And the lyrics in this one, again, they're pretty straightforward. If I fell in love with you. And this was the B-side of And I Love Her. What are your thoughts on If I Fell?
So this one has a hard open with the lyrics, if I fell in love with you, would you promise to be true? It's got a nice sound to it. It's real mellow, but it's also a real pensive song. I thought that the last song's lyrics were pretty straightforward. This song's lyrics are very straightforward too. That he's guarding his tender little heart. He doesn't want to make the same mistake, of trying to push somebody into love that's not going to love him back. And so he wants to make sure that he doesn't get burned again. Right. But then again, he starts throwing some things in there about, oh, well, if I fall in love with you, then I want that previous girlfriend to see it so she'll be jealous and jilt her. That's not cool, man. What girls are going to appreciate that? That you're just, it makes you sound like you're just dating her to get back at your ex. Nobody should be in a relationship like that where there's some sort of trophy to jilt a previous relationship. But once again, masterfully played. These guys are... It just shows it's the Beatles. These guys can all play exceptionally well. Their instruments are perfect. They're all on time, on tune. And I mean, just listening to the way that these songs are mixed together and they're pieced together, it's so organized. It's just these guys at a very young age became masters of their craft, and it shows throughout the rest of their career. What are your thoughts on If I Fell?
I've never really considered it a ballad, but I guess it kind of is. I do like how you stated it goes straight to the chorus with the acoustic guitar behind it. It's got one thing that really pokes out in this song to me is the beautiful harmonies. This song is kind of, to me, the quintessential Beatles harmonies. This is the first song from the band that I really think had amazing harmonies on it. It's always kind of stuck out to me as that one. And whenever I hear this, it brings me to this album, because one thing about Hard Day's Night is it was actually the first album I got from the Beatles.
Oh, wow.
So it kind of holds a special place for me there.
Sure.
But the bass is good in it. It's got really simple, easy drumming, but it's on time. This is a great song. There's really not much to say about it because there's not a ton going on. It's just a beautiful song, a beautiful lyric, and beautiful music to it.
It's a bit more mellow than the other songs that we've heard so far.
It is mellow. I don't see it so much as a ballad, but I guess it is, But Beatles music is always hard for me because I throw it in another class. And so I don't consider, some of their songs sound a little country, but I don't consider them that. They're just the Beatles. So is what it is. So that brings us to the next song, I'm Happy Just to Dance With You. Now, this is a song that was written by Lennon and McCartney specifically for George Harrison to sing. At the time, Harrison really hadn't broken into his own on his songwriting abilities, and I think also with the two egos of Lennon and McCartney in the band, I think it was probably kind of hard to do as well. I think this song's perfect for George's vocal range, the way they wrote it, and it is one of two Lennon-McCartney songs that they wrote for George, and the other one is Do You Want to Know a Secret? So they recorded this song the same day as Long Tall Sally and I Call Your Name, and it's been covered by a number of bands, The Circle, Randy Bachman, Anne Murray, a bunch of others. But what are your thoughts on I'm Happy Just to Dance With You?
My very first thought out of the chutes is this is a good twisting song. A great song to do the twist to dance. Good dancing song. It's sweet, but this song is, it strikes me as being what a lot of gay dancers say to their heterosexual partners. That, hey, I don't need to fall in love with you. We don't need to kiss and hold hands, but I'll dance with you all night, girl. It's fun. It's fine. The instruments are good on this one, but they're kind of subdued and mixed to the back compared to the vocals. And I think that's on purpose so that George can be heard, that his voice can stand out above it all. Strikingly, I didn't really pay much attention going through the listening to it. I didn't realize that, oh, wait, that's George singing instead of Paul or John. He sounds like one of the Beatles. And
well, he is.
Yeah, he belongs there. And I think that's noteworthy that he sounds like he belongs in this band.
The funny thing is a casual Beatles fan is not going to be able to pick out Paul McCartney, John Lennon, or George Harrison.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people think all of George's songs, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Something, Here Comes the Sun, they're just all sang by John Lennon or Paul McCartney. But I think once you're a devoted Beatles fan, then it's kind of strange when somebody can't tell which Beatles singing,
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting.
It's a good song. It's fun. Good song to dance to. What are your thoughts on it?
It's not too bad of a song. I mean, it's an early song that Harrison sings, and I don't mind his vocal on it. I don't think anything sticks out to me as amazing on this other than the bass really thumps on this song. Although the music is kind of mixed in the background, there's I think Lennon or possibly George are playing some little triplets on the guitar that I really like the sound of. I wish that was mixed a little more forward. The drumming's good on it, but this is kind of falls into the category of album filler for me on this. But I don't have many Beatles songs that I think are pure album filler. There's only probably 2 Beatles songs I ever skip when I get to them. And we'll talk about that one day when we get to those albums. But
all right.
So that moves us on to the next song, And I Love Her. This is another song written by Lennon McCartney, of course, but this one's primarily written by McCartney. And this is McCartney's first vocal on this album. So we're on song 5 and McCartney finally gets a vocal. Now this is McCartney's first ballad that he was actually happy with, and Paul McCartney is probably more well known for writing ballads than what Lennon is. He has stated that he wrote this in Jane Asher's parents' home while he was living there with them, and it was obviously written and inspired by Jane Asher herself. Now you've got John Lennon on acoustic guitar on this one, Harrison on lead guitar, and Ringo plays the congas. There's no drums in this, just the congas, and I think that's one thing that's actually perfect about this song. Now Lennon always claimed he wrote the middle 8, but McCartney says he did. There's a lot of that in Beatledom where people can't remember exactly what happened. And
well, only one of them's still around to give his side of the story.
Well, not only that, but people give these guys a lot of shit. If somebody asked me what I did 5-10 years ago, I can't remember. Now we're talking 50-60 years ago. So
there's so many Beatles fans out there. You people know what you are, that you know what was going on better than any of the people who were the main characters in this.
Yeah.
Remember.
Yeah, exactly. So this song, And I Love Her, was released as a single. It reached number 12 in the U.S. charts with If I Fell as the B-side. It's been covered by a number of people. Esther Phillips, Cliff Richards, and Kurt Cobain actually covered this song. But What are your thoughts on And I Love Her?
This song, once again, different sound. I'm Happy Just to Dance With You is more of that peppy, fast music like the rest of the album. This one goes kind of the way of, even more so, the way of If I Fell. then it's more subdued, and it's got what I would call like a Moroccan feel to it, that it just feels like Casablanca.
I think you're getting that from the congas. I think
That's
what
exactly where
gives
it's
it that
coming
feel.
from. Yeah, because it's real smooth and mellow, jazzy, really well done. And it's such a peaceful, easy listening song. So you've got this running theme of this young man who's chasing love. And if I fell, he was, saying about, well, I'm going to go and find another girl to, jilt my previous girl, but then in I'm Happy Just to Dance With You, he found a girl to dance with that's fun on the dance floor, but he doesn't really feel that spark and all that romantic. And then there's this one. He thinks he's found the one. He's found the girl, and she hasn't run away. He can pour all that love that he's been carrying around, just looking for somebody to douse with his love. He found a girl who's willing to just let him pour it all over her, and she'll take it, which makes me think that she's probably crazy, some kind of freak. But hey, I'm willing to go along with this ballad of a album and go with this young man on his love journey and see where it takes him, because I do wish him the best. Got my eyebrow raised a little. What are your thoughts on this one, Justin?
And I Love Her is one of my favorite songs on the album. It's got that really slow acoustic intro. You've got Ringo on the congas, which to me, that's what adds so much to this song. I think if they would have put drumming in it, it would have kind of destroyed the song in a way. The background finger picking on the guitar is one of my favorite during the choruses. I love that. Been to the Beatles Love Show in Vegas, and they have some soundtracks playing over. They basically had the vocals removed, and they have this song playing in there without the vocals, and I love hearing it. I love hearing that guitar and everything. It's one of my favorite to hear.
I'm sure.
It's got a really pretty, simple guitar solo in the middle of it. I can even play myself, and I enjoy playing it often. Then the intro, once again, finishes out the song. So I like how they recall that. This is one of my favorite songs on the album, and I've always enjoyed it.
Excellent love song.
So let's get to the next song, Tell Me Why. This was written and sang by John Lennon, a Lennon-McCartney composition. It was performed in the studio performance sequence in the Hard Day's Night film. Now, John Lennon wrote this song specifically for the movie A Hard Day's Night. You've got Lennon and Harrison on guitars, you got Paul on bass, obviously Ringo on drums, and George Martin on piano on this one. This is one of the most upbeat songs on the album. It was recorded during the same sessions as And I Love Her, the previous song, and If I Fell. Now, this has been covered by a number of people as well. The Beach Boys, April Wine, the Chanel Sisters, a number of artists. I mean, when you get to Beatles covers, there's more than you can even name, so I just try a few. But what are your thoughts about Tell Me Why?
I'm surprised that the lyrics are such a bluesy lyrics, because I mean, in our young man's journey, she wasn't as into him as he was into her. He's caught her not being true to him, and that breaks his heart. But that is so juxtaposed with the instruments. It's excellent. An upbeat, kind of a jazzy feel to it on the drums. This is a song that's very reminiscent of early rock and roll. This song sounds about 10 years earlier than it is, I think. But that being said, boy, it's a beautiful song, and it just sounds really good, real easy on the ears, and I could listen to it over and over again. It's a beautiful one. What are your thoughts on Tell Me Why?
I think I disagree with you a little bit on that.
You can disagree.
I think this one's a little bit more of the album filler category. I think the bass sticks out a little bit on it. You've got a couple parts in the song where Lennon strains his vocals, and I think Lennon has one of the best strained vocals there are. The harmonies are okay in it, but not great. I think Harrison's guitar on this is good, and the drums have got a couple good spots in it, like during the break, but this hasn't always been my favorite song. It's an okay song, not bad. So that moves us on to Can't Buy Me Love, the last song on side one. Now, this was written mainly by Paul McCartney, and of course, this is his second contribution to a vocal on this album so far. And he apparently wrote this while touring in Paris, and this was released as the band's sixth single in March of 1964. Now, this song reached number one everywhere, the US, UK, everywhere you can think of, and it had You Can't Do That as the B-side. Now, this is the fourth best-selling single of the 1960s in England. So this song also topped the charts at number one in the US for over 5 weeks, and when it reached number one, the band held the top 5 songs in the charts at the time, which is just crazy to think of.
These guys really found their audience.
And that's something that's never happened before that. And guess what, Taylor Swift fans? That hasn't still happened after that either.
You find anybody that reaches an entire generation like the Beatles, and I will eat my hat
Well, I've said that about the Beatles a number of times. Because they churned out so much music and churned it out so quickly, some of the success of their songs were kind of haltered by the success of their other songs.
Yeah.
Songs that would have made it to number one. But I mean, if they had 5 songs out on the charts at the time, would all 5 have hit number one?
Exactly. And this album's a chart topper, but not every song on this album's a chart topper. But there's so many singles on here that are chart toppers, and this is one of them.
Well, and it's the funny thing, because at the time they held the top 5 spots, they also held 14 of the top 100 spots.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy to think about. It really is. This has been covered by a number of people. Once again, too many to name. Sold over 6 million copies, the single has worldwide. What are your thoughts on Can't Buy Me Love?
So this is an excellent song. Such a masterful love song. It's got that hard open of, can't buy me love. Money can buy you a lot of things. It can buy comfort and it buy pleasure. It can even buy people. Like, human trafficking's a real thing. You can buy people still. You can't make someone love you. You can buy a person, but you can't make them love you. You can provide that person with as much as of the things that they want, but even going back to some of these other songs that we've listened to already, he just wants to dance with this girl. He's not going to love her, doesn't want to kiss her, doesn't want to hold her hand, but, she's fun to dance with, and he's content with that. Well, the same goes in return, that he's, run into these other girls that they're just not that into him, and he can't buy their love. And this is kind of, this being the way to close out side one is perfect, because that's kind of the whole theme, is like he's finally figured it out that, oh wait, I can give you whatever I want, but money's not going to buy me love. He's got some good priorities. He doesn't care much for money. He only wants love. So, he's putting that ahead of everything else. And you all know this song. It's so well played. And the instruments they sing together so well. Everything about it. I don't have anything more to add. Justin, take it from here.
Can't Buy Me Love is, if anything, it falls into that category of Beatles songs where there's certain ones that are so popular. I wouldn't say that I don't listen to them as much, but sometimes you've heard them so many thousands of times, especially as a big Beatles fan. But I love this song. I like how it goes straight to the chorus. It's got great bass in it once again. It's a very, very strong McCartney vocal, one of his early strongest songs in my opinion. I love the scream that goes in the middle section right into the guitar solo by Harrison. There's nothing that's not good about this song. It's a perfect song on a near perfect album.
They made an 80s rom-com with it, and the star of that one was McDreamy. So,
and that's something I was going to say, is when I first met my wife, that was her favorite movie.
Oh, for real?
And it still is, and I was all for it too, because I thought, well, it's got the Beatles as the theme song. It can't be too bad.
Yeah, she's right. There's nothing wrong with Mrs. Justin.
Okay, so that's side 1 of A Hard Day's Night by the Beatles. We'll, of course, be back next week with side 2 of Hard Day's Night, our winners and losers, and our album rating. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, send them to classicvinylpodcast@gmail.com. And like always, we appreciate you listening, especially to Tyler and Justin that don't know a damn thing other than what our ears think. But until next week, we'll see you later.
Thank you so much for listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast for updates, and also share us with your music-loving friends.